Shalom. Sorry about that. This is Nitza from Remnant Remedy, where we're living and learning a restoration lifestyle. And we have had technical difficulties trying to get on, and I had lost my PowerPoint. I think I recovered it. So this is the second time I've been back live, and evidently I'm not supposed to do these shows, or at least the enemy doesn't want me to. So we will go and get started. And excuse me for being a little flustered. Everything I had planned and ready is kind of out of whack. So anyway, let me get here. What we're going to do with this show, the Aleph-Tav Remedy Show, is we're going to be going through what we call the Aleph-Tav Body System book. And we could spend, probably a good year or 2 or 3, because there's layers and layers upon the body, the Aleph-Tav Body System, which we're going to try today just to kind of do an intro and learn about, what is it, why, etc. If you want to order the book, I have resources also for you that you're going to want to download. If you would have gotten those if you were on the newsletter. If you want to, the main website is remnantremedy.net. Or actually, it's even better to go remnantremedy.com. And from there, you will find there are 3 distinct stores. If you register for one, it's not the same as the other one. And one's a EMF Shield store. One's a essential oil, Pure Shaman essential oils. There's Pure Shaman EMF store, totally different, and a Pure Shaman linen store. Then you will find videos, you will find articles, you'll find hundreds of archives, radio archives on there, especially done on Messianic Lamb Radio. And probably for most of the listeners here today, for what we're doing, you're going to want to go to the Shaman and the Sheish categories on the radio archives, because that is linen and essential oils or oils. And then we ask that you please subscribe to Rumble, because we do have a YouTube channel, but, well, let's put it this way. Some of us are censored more than others, and we're hoping to direct people there. Number one, if we get 100 subscribers, I really haven't been promoting that. I was just doing it as a backup, but we're trying to drive people there so that we don't, let's put it this way. We're anticipating if we have any problems. We don't want to spend a lot of time and energy over there where we might just end up getting knocked off anyway. So, but if you go to the main store, or the main site, remnantremedy.com, and click on the Pure Shaman Essential Oil, that will take you to the Pure Shaman store, where there's mostly essential oils, detox products, and the Aleph-Tav. You can do a drop-down menu. There'll be Aleph-Tav. There will be the book. There will be the Quantum Energy Minerals, which is a full-spectrum mineral that we'll talk about in one of the shows, and or in the newsletter. Also, you want to subscribe for that newsletter at remnantremedy.com. Friend me on Facebook, Nitza Moshe. We also have a private group. Excuse me. We have a private group, and that private group, I just post sometimes things faster there because it just takes me so long, and I can't get to the radio or wherever, whatever it is. So anyway, so what you would have found in the letter, and I want you to do now, because even if we don't get to it today, you're going to want this. The articles off of remnantremedy.com goes to a webpage called livingstonestabernacle.org. And what you will find there, I created a new category called the Aleph-Tav Body System, I believe, and you will find Hebrew charts. And I would be glad to share the screen and take you there, but I am concerned that I'm going to lose internet again, because it seems like when I'm doing more than 1 or 2 things, I lose it. So I encourage you to go now to livingstonestabernacle.org now, go under the Aleph-Tav system, and I put in an ancient Hebrew chart in there, and I put in a modern Hebrew chart. If you look down at the bottom, there'll actually be a correlation between the two. And I think I also put an update on the book, and I put the initial Aleph there, part of the workbook that I've been sitting on for a long time trying to finish up. And on the update, for those of you who have purchased the book from Remnant Remedy, you probably, unless you did it within the last week or two, you probably have the first edition printed last year when the book first came out, August 2021. Well, now there is an August 2022 revised first edition. And we discounted the one because we have a few left from last year. But there's also a link there that will tell you how to go and download the pages with the revisions. And many people are reporting they don't see what the difference is or the changes, but believe me, there are minute changes. It might be the difference between using the left hand or the right hand. It might be a correction on the letter. You know, it's really kind of hard to say. I have not myself had the time to go in and find every little detail, but download the pages. The information is there for you. Okay. And let's see, now that I'm halfway got my brain together, Shalom, Braka. Brakaim, I'm not sure really how to pronounce that, but thank you and welcome. I was just working on your stuff when I got thrown off right before going on the show. So anyway, what I will do, I think that's the beginning, is download those worksheets because you're going to want them. And I will try to keep up with the worksheets. But we're going to spend a lot of time on an intro today. And there's a whole front of the book that we want to know and learn the overall system of what is the Aleph-Tav Body System, right? So let me share my screen. And we will start over here. Okay. And hopefully it will come up. It wasn't coming up there. Maybe it's just interesting. All right. We put on share screen. We're going to try it again. All right. And let's take me off. There we go. Okay. All right. So first of all, I want to point out something because some people may have noticed this, some people may have not. When you see whatever I type or write, over the years, I have always used Aleph-Tav, spelled A-L-E-F. Some people translate it because it's a transliteration. Sorry, I keep trying to get the sounds off, and people are trying to get on the show, and I can't help them right now because I sent them all the information, so I don't really know how to help them get in there. I don't have anybody in the background helping with the chats or tell people how to get in and out, and I've turned my sounds off, so I really don't know why my phone's going off. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so here's what I want to point out to you. Whenever I write or type Aleph, and I'm referring specifically to Dr. Alphonzo Monzo's book, The Aleph-Tav Body System, or when I'm doing the essential oil frequency blends, anything that I'm like referring exactly to him in his book, I will spell it the way he does, A-L-E-P-H. But when it's, you know, the way I've always written it, the way I write it is A-L-E-F. And so, and I'll tell you the reason why. I don't know what Al's reason is, but for me, the reason is because I homeschooled for 30 years and I taught phonograms and phonics to my children. And one of the rules were that if you saw a word in English with PH, it was a Greek origin word. So when I started learning Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, I didn't want to show the Greek version of it. I wanted to show the F plain version for the sound. Okay. And that's kind of the issue. We don't have real translations. We have transliterations because we're going from a pictograph to a different language. And so I just wanted to point that out because you might get kind of confused and say, why is it spelled two different ways? You can spell it however you want. Okay. I just wanted to point that out to you. So let me see. Oh, okay. So if anybody is friends with Shelly Beth online on Facebook, could you please tell her, direct her? I don't know how or what to say to her to get here. I'm assuming that she would go to lamnetwork.tv, and I assume you have to sign in for a chat, right? Braca, she says that she can't hear me. Can you hear me out there? Can anyone in the chat room tell me if you can hear me? That would be good. Otherwise, I don't know why I'm not being heard, okay? So I will, if anyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that, because I know we have technical difficulties. I just don't know if they're mine or somebody else's. Right. Okay, so anyway, so that's like, like on this PowerPoint, right? I actually use the letters here. That this was designed for me by a wonderful person who's now in the room, her son. Here, John. Thank you, Janie, for being here. Anyway, Shelly Beth says she can't hear me. I know she's a friend of mine on Facebook. Maybe you can tag her underneath the Facebook there. Let her know. Anyway, so anyway, I explained the difference between why I spell it different. And so this logo here, right, with the Aleph and the Tav, and there's just so much teaching in depth that we can go into, and we will over the course of these shows on the Aleph and the Tav. I mean, if you really think about it, one of the things I hope to portray to you is it is everything. Okay, the Aleph and the Tav represents every letter, life force, and energy from the Aleph to the Tav that created everything seen and unseen, that is the Spirit, that is Yeshua, that comprehends everything. And so that's why we could spend forever on this topic. And we'll look at that in Scripture, especially in the High Places teaching that I am doing on Heart of the Tribes platform on Thursdays. And so I encourage you, the Heart of the Tribes platform that I am doing Remnant Remedy there, starting with a series called High Places. I will be going into frequency and energy of Genesis and how that is literally, you can see it in the picture. And I'll be doing that more there than I will here, because we have so much content here and so much to learn that the two will dovetail to each other. So if you can get between the two, that would be really great. Okay. So then if you notice here, the logo for Dr. Monzo in his book here is the pH, and there's this ethereal and physical bioenergetic electrical field energy inside and out of our bodies, and learning this and getting this is really going to help us begin to understand. And so I discussed the story. Okay, and if you want to go to their site, okay, their website is Well-Being by Design. Okay, it's well-being by design, I think, .com. And then there's heartofthetribes.org. You can look there. They have different platforms, and then Lamb Network. And again, if you will please go to Rumble and subscribe. When we get 100 subscribers, we will be able to live stream there. And it'll also save us some time, because when these shows are done and I have to download them and manipulate them and get them over to different places, and I don't always have time to do that. So, and if you will, please pray. I'm praying for help. Okay, I have so many writings, so much to do, but I just can't do it all. So anyway, I am also, for those who are interested, before we get here, get into this, is I have created, well, I didn't really create. I had my son create, and I just got to give him the contents. I have a website that is called atremedy.com. and it's not, I don't think it's open yet. But what is there, and I need to explain this to you guys because you don't really realize how much censorship is out there, right? Especially for those in the natural health field. I know that, like I know Dr. Monzo's had this problem. I've had this problem. We get shut down, our financial gateways to be able to collect money, whether it's donations or for product. Many financial gateways that are controlled by whoever do not want us to be able to be in business. So they'll take away our ability to take credit cards or just different angles of that. I mean, we're already censored in what we can say and what we can't say. And so, for instance, as an example, years ago when I first opened Remnant Remedy, I had a really hard time because I couldn't find a financial gateway who wanted to provide a way to collect funds for essential oils because it was a natural health product. It took a while, but I did. And then it seemed to kind of ease up a little bit. Well, fast forward a few years, and we have these clay diffusers, right, that are handmade with ancient Hebrew letters on them that say Shemin or Yahweh or Shalom, different things. And I had the person who makes them for me, hand makes them, was putting some of them on deer rope, deer leather, and some were put on hemp rope, right? Well, I was contacted and told that I could not have that word on my website or sell hemp products, including a hemp rope necklace. So in order for me to continue with Remnant Remedy, I had to go and take that description off of what that rope was made of for that necklace. Okay. I still sell the salve product, but it's not on my website. So unless you know about it through my newsletter, you don't know a lot of the products that I have for sale. And then, of course, there's a lot of products I never get on there, but people call me and I order them, do manual orders for them. But there's lots of products. We have hundreds of products and blends, essential oils that I import and blend and pour and label, etc., by hand. And now including the frequency blends for the Aleph-Tav Body System. So just to let you know, so that's kind of the problem. And so back to this AT Remedy website. The reason I have it is when some of these really good products come out, the powers to be will take the ability away to get paid to sell the product. And there is one particular product. It's a terahertz wand blower that is used for different modalities of restoration to the body. I'll try never to use the word healing because we're really not allowed to use that. And it's not a medical device, of course, because you're going to learn that there's so much about legal terminology and words. And so what I'm trying to do, it's very difficult unless you're on Facebook, which many of my people are not on Facebook. It's hard to get them the information. And it's hard for me to mail the documents to everybody all the time and keep up with it. So what I'm trying to do is I've got these documents I'm putting on ATB Remedy, atremedy.com. And what I will do is I'll provide that information so that I can just send you there for the information. So you can get the documentation, you can get the information, but you'll have to come back to me if you actually want to purchase, because we can't have the information connected to the purchase. Okay. So if you're interested in those, you can contact me, but that's what we're working on. And there will be other things. Anything that is what I call an Aleph-Tav remedy, which means it has to do with the frequencies and energy modalities that would not be considered approved or okay on my Remnant Pure Shemin site, right? And I don't want to jeopardize that. Okay. Not to say that I never expect that to be jeopardized, because I do. Sometimes we get attacked. But like if ever I do interviews with people from Israel, I always get attacked through cyberspace. So anyway, that will be what kind of information I will put on that site, so that I can send it to you instead of me having to figure out how to get all the documentation to you. Anyway, so with that being said, let's go to the next slide here. And my computer is a little slow. I think it's really the internet because I'm hooked to a server. So if I lose everything, I won't lose it all overnight. And right now it doesn't seem to want to move. Okay. All right. So this was basically the byline, what I was trying to get across to people about what this show is about. And I got to figure out how to watch time because there's no way we're going to get through much here. The energy life force of creation is the Aleph-Tav, who is the remedy for mankind. And I will show you that from scripture because it's in the pictograph language. It's right there in Genesis 1:1-3. And we could spend forever looking at the mysteries and the revelations of what's in Genesis 1:1-3. There is a remnant, there is a remedy for the remnant, which of course is how and what we came up with Remnant Remedy years ago. And I was very excited when I saw that Dr. Monzo was doing this work. And after a couple of years, the book finally came out. Now, here's the deal. If you're reading this book and you're going through this with us or going on its own, there's a lot of things that we don't know. Like now that we have the framework for this, and we're exploring this and people are going to start using this, right? We're going to come up with a lot more questions, but we're also going to come up with a lot more solutions, things that we didn't know about, right? And hopefully I'll come up with some good examples of that. But there's, some people say, well, when I order the frequency oil for the body point, or in the book, it's called a LFM, a light frequency manifestation. I call them body points for short. How do I use it? Do I get one with a carrier oil? Do I not get one with a carrier oil? Well, that really depends. If you're going to put it right on the body point and it's got a hot oil, so we'll be going into some of those things about safety in essential oils and applications. But probably for most of you, and for the price, because it's not cheap, and I would say that essential oils, sourcing them since the great event that happened, 2 years ago, that a lot of oils are either not available or have more than quadrupled in price. So that's not cool. I will remind you, though, that if you create an account on pureshaman.com store, you do earn 10% rewards that you can apply to future purchases, which will help with that. But, I would say for the most part, you're going to be saving money and you really don't need that full strength of the essential oil. You can order it with a fractionated coconut oil, which is what FCO is. And that means that the part that is organic, that could go rancid in the coconut oil has been extracted out. And so fractionated coconut oil, or we call it FCO, and sometimes some of the blends have jojoba, but usually just frank, because we don't want to change the frequency. Okay, that's the big thing. We don't want to change the frequency because the oils that are selected match the frequencies that have been measured by Dr. Monzo. But overall, the FCO does not change the frequency, and it makes it safer for you to apply, especially if your oil blend contains oregano or cinnamon. Okay, those are hot oils, right? So anyway, I lost my train, but we'll keep going. Okay, so we're going to, what I'm incorporating in this is we will be learning the Ancient Alef Bet, the Ancient Hebrew Alef Bet. And the main reason is for this. Even Father willing, I get my online school going. The basis for biblical Ancient-Artisan Aromatherapy, right, has to do with understanding and thinking in the mindset of ancient Hebrew, which I believe is the original Hebrew. In fact, I believe that the stars in the heavens are created in an original ancient Hebrew format. Because when you start learning this, then you start learning how to think with design, form, and function. Remember, the language it's a do language. It's a verb language, right? And in English, we're so used to thinking of nouns, okay? You know, for instance, the word debar, which is the basis of also the bee, right? The bumblebee, per se. We ask ourselves, what has that got to do with debar that gets translated into word or some form of communication, right? Well, here's the deal. If I break that apart, which I will do in one of the shows, you can look at the Dalet Bet Resh and see that it could mean vibrations or frequencies put in order from the beginning for life. And the contronym to that is debar, which is vibrations, frequency, or energy for chaos and death, right? There's two sides to the coin. And so we want to keep that in mind. So when we're learning the ancient Hebrew, because people who have been studying the ancient Hebrew, right, when they see this book, it excites them because a picture's worth 1,000 words. And they're trying to grasp and put their head around this. And I believe they do it much easier than someone who has not studied the ancient Hebrew language, okay? Because the ancient pictograph language gives you the picture of the action and the whole of it. And I believe that by learning the Aleph Bet in ancient Hebrew, it makes the modern Hebrew, at least it did for me and my family, makes it make more sense by looking at it. And now I look at the modern and go, oh, well, that makes sense now. Because to go from English to the pictograph language in modern Hebrew just really didn't make any sense to me. But when I learned the meanings and saw the pictures in the ancient, that made a huge difference. And that's going to be important because when Dr. Monzo measured and discovered that these body points and energy that he could measure on the body line right up with the ancient Hebrew Aleph Bet and the energies of them, then what is energy? Energy is right motion. Energy is doing. Energy is a verb. It's an action, right? So back to the bumblebee. Sorry about that. So why do we say, what does a bee got to do, right, with vibrations, frequencies, and in energy and order, right? Well, first of all, there's ancient cultures who actually, probably even today, worship bees because of the energy and the vibrations of them. But what do bees do? They build colonies in order, right? So their action, what they do is very orderly. Those combs are just beautiful that they create, right? So anyway, I think what I'm going to do is, I'm just looking at the time here. So what I'm saying is by learning the ancient Aleph Bet, just the basics, you're going to think different. And I'll give you an example. When I first learned them, I was listening to a teaching on Genesis by Brad Scott, and he brought up the word, he brought up something about Delilah and Samson. And because I had already translated what he was saying in the ancient Hebrew, Delilah is the Dalet, Lamed, and then there's a Lamed on the end. There might be a Vav in the middle. It's been a while since I've looked at that. But here's the deal. In my mind, I'd already seen, because I took Genesis 1 apart in ancient Hebrew, 1 through 5 originally. And I saw things that you just don't see that gets translated. And so one of the things I saw, maybe 1 through 5, where it says that the Hosek, the chaos, was the Lael, which was night, right? So when you say Delilah, and I also knew this was related to Baal, or it's really, in my estimation, Baal, it's the house of darkness, right? So when you say Delilah, you have the door, the Dalet, you have Lael, which is night, Hosek, because we've got to remember, one of the definitions of light is is order. Okay, so when Yahweh Elohim Aleph Tav said, "Let there be light," he said, "Let there be order." Because remember, there was chaos on the earth, or whatever comprehended or made up that, whatever was before that and during that time. So here we're looking at Delilah, translating it into my mind in a picture language. How did I translate it? Delilah, her name alone is the door to darkness. And what did she do for Samson, right? She secured the door of darkness for him. So that's just an example. And so as we go in, especially when we get into aromatherapy and energy modalities, we want to look at the thought process behind it and go back to that framework of the ancient Hebrew energy language, the life force of all creation, right? So that's why, get your charts if you can. And if you have problems with that, you can, contact me, but hopefully you can get that at livingstones.org, so that you can start looking at those. Also, if you get a chance, what really helped me was take the ancient Hebrew chart and concentrate on that first, would be my recommendation. And go to, I think that's on the page that I put on Living Stones for information. Go to Hebrews with the number 4 Christians.com, or maybe it's .org. And what you do is they have a music video, just music. And I would pull it up for you, but I can't. I'm afraid to lose the show here. And there's a lot of Aleph Bet videos out there on the internet. Okay. But if you're like me and you're old, maybe you're a little older, right? And they have these new versions and you've never heard these versions, all right? I want to equate it to, ABCs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Well, what I really like about the Hebrews for Christians is when you go on there, they have a link under the Aleph Bet section. And they also have a homeschool section with coloring pages and all kinds of stuff for modern Hebrew. But the point is they have that little sound clip and they sing the Aleph Bet to the same tune that most of us learned our ABCs to. Okay. I probably listened to that at least 50 times, looking at the letters before it finally clicked in my head. And so now with that sound and that music clip, I know the Aleph Bet, right, in my head when I sound it. And when I go through it. Okay. So I would really encourage you to do that. All right. So we're down to 30 minutes and we're not going to have time to do a lot of what I wanted to do today. I do want to share a testimony. Please get the book so you can follow us. But I want to go to a testimony. And then if I have time, I'll start to answer a question. But I think, and I had all of that printed out. And please forgive me. I just lost everything in order right before we went on when my internet went out again for the 3rd time. Just trying to load this stuff up for the show. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here. We're going to go to testimony. And I see that Janie is in the room. Now, let me see. It's just so slow to move here. We were going to go through this stuff, but we don't have time today. So I encourage you for your homework, at least, to read. The foreword of the book is why Dr. Monzo wrote the book, number 1. I want you to know the author. I want you to know his mindset. There's a lot of energy modalities out there. The bottom line is that it's all created and owned by Yahweh, but it needs to be a proper use, proper purpose according to its divine and its function as Yahweh created it. And that's the problem with most everything that goes into New Age or witchcraft, etc. And what the world's doing with everything is they take the proper original design and function and purpose of something and they pervert it, okay? And what believers have done as a whole is just write it all off as bad. And so part of what's really happening here and what I've been working on for years and what was going to just go mushroom with this is this book to show us. I also posted in the newsletter a link to Dr. Monzo and a radio show that Shell hosted us earlier this year because I didn't have my own live show going. I just had archives. And we had him on, and he did a thing called Truth or Deception for the Believer, kind of going into how you can tell the difference. So I encourage you to look at that newsletter and go to that link. So part of your homework is read the foreword if you have the book, order the book if you don't have it. Again, you can get that at pureshaman.com. And next week we'll go into what is the Aleph-Tav Body System according to the book. And what I want to do, what I want to right now is give you a teaser of some other stuff that's in the book, aside from the essential oils and the body parts that are to be used with a certain frequency or energy. There's 7 applications. We can use tuning forks. We can use music. And there's different, and then there's the positive, negative energy in our body. And what Dr. Monzo describes as the lost art of laying on of hands. And so that's the testimony that I want to share with you. And there was a testimony done by Shel Wagner of Heart of the Tribes. And so if you can read this right here, it's up YouTube. And what you want to do, and this is another part of your homework, if you want to, she's doing a wonderful thing on the tribes and showing how the tribes of Israel also function as different parts of the body. So this is a really good supplement to go along with the thought process of this. And so if you go to episode 1 on the Heart of the Tribes, and it's under the category of Let's Talk Torah, 12 Tribes and Body Systems, and it's Levi, and it's about, she's showing how Levi acts as the cardiovascular system as part of the body of Yeshua. And go to episode 1. And there's a testimony in there of how she used the book. And I believe Lee Carruthers was there and helped her. And she had ordered the oils for the frequencies, and she used them in combination with what was going on with the shingles. So I really encourage you to do that. So now we're going to go, and I'm going to skip down. Be prepared. I saw this and fell out of my chair the other day. Hang on. There we go. All right. So we have this testimony. And this part, this is in the book. It begins on this particular, it's in the back of the book where we're talking about laying on of hands. And of course, there are laying on of hands and ways to use the positive, negative energy in the body with each body point, right? As we go through the book. But this section here is, these techniques that we can use for hemorrhaging and strokes and different things, pain during childbirth and stuff like that. So what we have here is we have Janie's beautiful leg, and you can see here that she has this scar and she had surgery, right? And so she has the Aleph-Tav Body Book System, but she loaned it to a friend. And so she didn't have the book with her, and her husband was over there doing some work at the friend's house. And here's what happened. So I'm going to read this to you, and you're going to see here, this is his bloody knee here. And then over here on the right, you can probably see, if you could blow this up, there's just a tiny little place. This is a tiny little hole, a tiny little scab that produced a lot of blood. Okay, this is what she said. I had quite a scary experience last week. I was over at a friend's house, and I had a little scab on the front of my knee where I have an old scar, which was from a past surgery. And forgive me, I was trying to correct all this when I was retyping from her audio. And I picked up a scab off of it, and it began gushing blood, like more blood than I thought could come out of that little hole from the scab. I realized it may have been a vein attached to the area, and when I pulled the scab off, it just started gushing blood. So I tried applying direct pressure with a paper towel, but I could not stop the bleeding. It filled the paper towel full, and I got a second one, and I kept putting direct pressure on it, and it still wasn't slowing down the flow. So I called my husband, and I ran to the shower so I wouldn't bleed all over my friend's house where I was. And my husband happened to be at the other friend's house to whom I had loaned the Aleph-Tav Body System book to. And as I was telling my husband that I couldn't stop the blood gushing, she heard me from the background, and she started telling me that she knew what to do. She said that basically, I could tell the rest. So basically, the woman had just read this part of the book that is on page 318 and 319. This is like 411 pages in the book. And she had saw the technique as to what you do to stop bleeding. And so she was telling and walking Jamie over the phone what to do to stop bleeding. Okay. And here is a picture of the technique. When you're bleeding or someone's bleeding, you take your right hand, right, and you place it over preferably the area that's bleeding, but that may not always be possible. And then you take your left hand at a 90-degree angle and you put it on. Now, it's not about the pressure that you're putting on. It's about the positive, negative energy in your body, because that's how your heart pumps, right? You're like a battery, really. And if I stood all of us up in a room and we were holding hands, and we had one of those little toys that light when you hit the connectors on the light bulb, we would individually or as a group get that light bulb to come on and off, unless somebody in the group is dehydrated, because remember, water conducts electricity, like in creation in Genesis 1, or the person has reverse polarity, which in that case, something's not going right, and we've got to figure out why. But I've done this in at conferences and Sukkots where people don't believe they're really light beings, that they have this light energy in them. And we got to remember, we have this wonderful nervous system, and we're full of light and electricity. When we're conceived, there's light, boom, at the sign of conception now. So we know that. So here's the technique. It's in the book. And she said that she put that technique over her knee where it was bleeding. And she said she kept peeking, right? And it took about 4 minutes before the blood stopped. And of course, the directions in the book, I believe, says it usually takes 2 to 5 minutes for the blood to stop bleeding. And she hasn't bled since. So in this particular case, it stopped the bleeding, evidently from the vein that was squirting blood out. So it was kind of scary when you have a tiny little scab and you pull it off, and oh my gosh, there's all this blood coming out. So this is also part of what is the Aleph-Tav Body System. It's also learning that our bodies are electrical and that we have this energy. And I really believe that we're at the threshold now that this book has come out, that the body of the Messiah is going to learn the tools, reclaim these things that are used for energy modalities, and put them in proper perspective to be used for him and by his people. And it's going to be needed in the days to come. I don't think we're always going to be able to get a good plant that's organically grown, because it doesn't matter if they're dumping crud on it, right, from the chemtrails. We may not always be able to get into the essential oil. We may not always be able to get really good food, right? But what we do have is we have a life force within us. And man does not live by bread alone. And I believe that Father wants to empower us individually. He wants us to understand and wield that light of energy and that life force of his word in clean vessels that are living according to the Torah. And that the day will come, as we learn this individually, we will come together as a group of people who will be walking in power. Now, the thing that was really interesting to just demonstrate that is, I must have had it on the back one. Okay, here's the thing. In the book, it'll even tell you, and I saw a video on this one time with some Chinese doctors who weren't touching a person with a tumor. They were just putting their hands over the top of the person, and there was like, I don't know, 8 or 12 of them, and they were concentrating in saying words of affirmation. Remember, thoughts are electromagnetic energy. In scripture, everything was created with Amar, which I believe was actually the thought of Yah. We don't see the word Dabar until after Noah is told to get out of the ark. And so We have thought. That's why they tell us in the scriptures over and over, take your mind captive, because what you think is what you create, right? And so what we think, what we say, there's power, literally, life or death in our words and our thoughts. So what's interesting is here, it says here, the more people who can apply this application to someone in need, the more profound and effective and quicker are the results. So think about it. If we're in this place of Dr. Monzo is helping us to restore and relearn the lost art of the laying on of hands. You know, one of my first revelations in 2000 about essential oils and plants was, you know, you don't just call the elders, and I hope I don't come off wrong about this, but you don't just call the elders and slap on any oil for healing. I do believe you can slap on any oil and pray, and there is healing. However, once you really get into the study of oils, and let me remind you, the original oils in the scriptures were not essential oils that took distillation, which didn't come until 300 to 800 years after Yeshua. They were actually infused oils, and there's different properties in a fusion of an oil versus a distillation of an oil. So where was I going with that? Anyway, I don't know. Okay, so you have these essential oils, and we have this energy, and we're going to learn to apply it. But we're also going to talk sometimes about the herb and how the herb is really made more for us to take internally. Then there's the lipid, the infusion of the oil, how there's certain things in the infusion that you're not going to get in a distillation. And actually, there's some things you wouldn't get in a distillation that you won't get in the infusion. But we're looking at the power and intensity of the frequencies and the energy of whatever the modality that we're using. You know, I've known some believers who have left the faith and gotten into frequency and energy and the science. And we got to remember, science is nothing more than knowledge. What is knowledge? All knowledge, true knowledge, is just a revelation or an understanding or beginning to know the truth and knowledge that Yahweh made and created. Okay, science in and of itself is nothing, right? And it is always better to have revelation instead of knowledge, especially even when it comes to the word of Yah, right? We want the revelation. We don't want just what we can see with our eye. We want to get what is in the spirit realm, in the ethereal realm, in the unseen realm. And when we're dealing with energy, this is what we're coming into contact with. This is what we're dealing with. And so this book is going to help us restore that. And so I get excited to think that you know, when they came with the oil, right, they had a certain oil, and it is probably the original, or at least close to the original blend of oil or this incense that they used that overcame the plague, you know. And when you study the properties of what was in the Keteret, which was diffused, or the anointing oil, then you begin to understand how those oils were antiviral, antibacterial, etc. So when they came and laid on hands with these oils of infusions of botanicals, it wasn't just some, you know, almost rancid oil from Walmart, okay? So now we're looking at, gotta keep track of the time. Now we're looking at, wow. So can you imagine? I mean, I'm just imagining, let's say Janie was out in public and she's bleeding, right? And people that are believers who know and understand this lost art of the laying on of hands, or, you know, even other believers who believe that energy modalities are, you know, evil. And we think about all the healing things that Yeshua did, right? They were, you know, he was called evil. But can you imagine someone's bleeding and you go up and you lay on your hands, right? And you're just laying them on them, and the bleeding stops. And let's say you're praying either internally or out loud, and somebody sees that, they're going to be amazed. And you're just going to be like, oh, Father revealed this knowledge to us, and we're using our body energy that he created us to be, literally living stones, living tabernacle, living stones with light and energy and nanocrystals of light and rock in us. That's what he created us to be. And so I think we're going to see a lot more as we go through this. All right, so let's just skip forward here because we're running down on time. But I wanted you to see that. I wanted you to see how valuable the information in this book is going to be. And instead of just taking your essential oils and putting them whatever, we're going to be looking at the body points. What oil or combination of that would we do? How could we use, say, the terahertz wand blower? How could we use a tuning fork? How could we use sound? Now, I personally won't be going into a lot of those. I will bring them up, but I will be focusing on the ancient Hebrew and the essential oil part of this, and then bring in whatever else I have learned in the process. Okay. So we've got a few minutes, but let's go here. So what's going to happen is, if this thing will change for me, right? This is part of what I had posted at Livingstone so that you would have something to look at. And one of the things I'm going to try to incorporate here, and so this is great if you're a homeschooler, or even if you're not a good speller, and this will help you know how to spell, because if you teach old-fashioned phonograms and phonics, you will learn why is something spelled the way it is, right? So when we look at the Aleph, which, when we get later in this, we'll be looking, where is the Aleph on the body? Where is that energy point, number one, on the body? Well, it's right here on the inside of the knee, right? And what is the action? Well, we look at the word. We look at the energy. We look at the letter, and we see that it's the prime mover, okay? Its action is it moves us as the body, as individuals, forward, okay? And then we're going to look at what that letter is in ancient Hebrew, what it was called in ancient Hebrew, what it's called in modern Hebrew. It's silent in the modern, but in the ancient, it's A or A. And, if you're looking at it, it's an ox head. It represents strength. If you're in ancient Israel or ancient times, probably the biggest, strongest animal out there was the ox. And when you think about the Aleph and the Tav, what I would like for you to consider is to think about the Aleph is the beginning, the strong head, which also is associated with divine and Elohim. And you go through all those letters of creation from the first one to the very end when you have the cross or the Tav, right? Which is the sign, which is the goal, which is the destination. So when we look at a long furrowed row, like, the road is narrow, referring to that verse to the kingdom, it is like, it has to do with the energy and the power of the word from the Aleph to the Tav, going down that road that I planted, which is the Torah. And when I get to the end, when I get to the goal, when I begin to bear fruit from the crop of my life or your life, then the goal is Yeshua, right? It is the cross. It's the sign. I believe that was the sign on Cain's forehead. So anyway, so you're looking at that. So what are some of the meanings when you look at it? It's strong. It's the leader, right? Well, let's go back on some of the sounds. So in English, so this is how and what I did when I was teaching my children. Thank you. It's really easier to teach your young children Hebrew first. And some of them will automatically write in the right direction. So see, we're taught to write from right to left. In Hebrew, you're going to left to right. My youngest child did that automatically. I did not correct him. You can teach this ancient Hebrew first because it's the first in the language, right? And then you can say, but in English, okay, in Hebrew, it can make the sound ah, a, or silent. But in the English, when we look at the letter A, which comes from that, and you can kind of see how it comes from that when you go through the progressions, you're teaching your child to read and write. You teach them that when they see the letter A, it makes 3 sounds. A, ah. Not to be confused with A-U, or A-A-Y, because A-U, we may not use at the end of an English word because we don't end an English word now in U. But we can end an English word like way, like look at the way to go, with an A-Y, because that is how we get that A sound at the end of an English word. But if we're just seeing A, those are our sounds. But if I see an A-U or A-Y. So what happens is it may take longer for your child to learn to read, but they learn to be able to look at a word and figure out why, and it makes them better spellers in the long run. So I would encourage you, if you get this opportunity to learn the ancient Aleph Bet, learn the modern, and then go back and look at your sounds and rules and your phonograms and your English. Okay. And anyway, so we'll be going into that. And I did get permission from Jeff Benner years ago. I would really encourage you to go to ancient-Hebrew.org with Jeff Benner. That is where I originally learned my language, my ancient pictograph language. So I will quit sharing because I don't want to run over. Okay. So, Braca, I'm sorry we didn't get to that, but we will next time, hopefully. We're going to talk about linen and some questions she has on linen. And I wanted you to know that linen is addressed in this book on frequencies and energies. And if you have the book, it starts on page 381. And I will have her questions next time, and I will answer them from what I have learned. I know a lot of people get into the frequency and energy of the letters, of the linen, but it's so much more than that when we go through scripture. So anyway, I think I'm getting close. I've got to get ready to get out of here. I'm still learning to do this and learn the flow here. So if you have any questions, and let me see, I saw that there was one. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye. And may your garments always be white, and let your head lack no shimmin. And hopefully, Father willing, and the creek don't rise, we will be back next Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Okay? And thank you so very much for doing this and coming here with me. And we look for Rumble, and we'll get this uploaded. Okay? Thank you. Blessings.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.